Hey, what's going on? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be starting a new series on using WebSockets to subscribe to real-time market data. And as an example of what you can do with real-time market data, I'm going to be creating a grid trading bot. So I've been getting this request for a number of months now, and I figured I'd finally get around to this one, so I thought I'd check it out. I pulled up a few examples of grid trading bots and some animated GIFs that they provide, and let's just look at one of those real quick. You see how this price is fluctuating up and down here in this narrow range, or in this range of prices, right? And it's kind of like a choppy market action there, right? And you see how there's this grid of buy and sell orders right here. And so it starts with a few buys down here and a few sells up here along this entire range. And as the price goes down, it hits all these buy lines and buy some, and then it immediately places sell orders above that. And so you accumulate and buy some on the way down, and then it places sell orders above, and as the price gradually recovers, you see those sell orders are hit, and you accumulate profit. Just like that, very easy, right? So how are we going to go about building this? Well, for this particular series, I'm going to be using JavaScript. Why JavaScript? Well, a few reasons. Number one, there's been quite a few commenters ask if I would do something on Node.js or use JavaScript. Since I've been so heavily biased towards Python, I thought I would do a few JavaScript examples. That way everyone knows multiple languages. Secondly, anyone can run this that has a web browser, so you can just type this into a text editor, open up this web page in a browser, and it'll just start working. You don't have to set up a virtual environment or anything. And like WebSockets, for instance, in JavaScript are built in out of the box. But third, I think most importantly, for real-time market data, I'd like to do some real-time visualizations as well. And I like the visualization libraries and charting libraries for JavaScript. They're pretty sophisticated since a lot of JavaScript needs to run on the web, and applications like TradingView are web-based and use JavaScript. So there's a lot of cool open source libraries out there. And I find they look a little bit better than what's out there for Python. So I thought I'd try this for this particular example. So let me show you what the outcome is going to look like. So first of all, it's going to look kind of like this. This isn't the final version, but just to show you, this is real-time market data coming in for Ethereum right now. And you can see how I've dynamically created this chart. So we fetch some historical data and plot it here. And then we have some real-time data being plotted up to the minute. So you can see this most recent bar is actually moving up and down in real time. So this is real-time market data that's coming in right here. And you see Ethereum's at about $29.61 US. And I'm dynamically drawing this range of bars. So I've drawn 5 buy lines and 5 sell lines in green and red here. And those are evenly spaced at a configurable interval based on whatever price Ethereum last traded at when I loaded this page. And then when it hits a buy line down here, it's going to automatically do a buy and then place another sell order above here, and so on as this fluctuates around. And on the right side here, you see I have the real-time data that's actually coming in from the WebSocket. So right here, this is actually the real-time trade data. So you can see trades are being executed at 29.61.94, for instance, and then that's the size of the trade right next to it. And then here, right here, is real-time quotes that are coming in. Those are streaming in over WebSockets as well. And so that's the bid price there of 29.51 and the ask price there of 29.69. And then here I have the buys and sells that are being managed. So I'm showing those different levels. So you see this first sell line is at 29.66.02. So you see that 29.66.02. And then you see a buy here at 29.36.02. And so, yeah, that's the lowest buy line, 29.36.02, and it goes all the way up to 29.56.02. And as these buys and sells are hit, it automatically manages this queue of orders, right? And so it'll pop a buy order off the top, for instance, here, then push another sell order up one interval above, and so forth. And so you can see real-time market data is coming into our system. We're automatically plotting it on an open source charting library. And then after that, it's just monitoring that price data and then doing some order management as new data comes in, just like we did in the past couple of videos. But before we get to all the order management, we need to actually figure out how to subscribe to real-time market data over WebSockets. So on this screen, this is the first thing we're going to build in this video and just focus on pulling data in and doing this real-time streaming and showing it in the web page, and also building this real-time chart right here that's graphing Ethereum data as it comes in. And so I think this looks pretty nice right here. And if we want to trade multiple symbols, I even made an example of this as well. So you can see I have Bitcoin and Ethereum price data streaming in and multiple charts going, and we could do multiple trading bots in parallel. Maybe we could have these interact with each other and watch the price of the other one, and so forth. They're showing you a little bit of what is possible here. So what technologies am I going to be using to build this? Well, first of all, I'm using an open source charting library. Like, we're not building everything from scratch, but we're not just embedding TradingView. We're actually going to use this open source project. They open source this one called Lightweight Charts, and it's just a 40 kilobyte library, and you can write JavaScript to integrate and create your own charts. And they've provided a number of examples of what you can do with this. So if you want your charts to look like that, if you want them to look like this 3-line legend and custom watermark, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. And so I'm making one that kind of looks like this candlestick chart here, but we're going to be appending real-time data to it. So we have a couple of examples of how this looks, and then we can just modify this to meet our exact needs. So here's the JavaScript examples they provide, and I'll show you exactly how to use this and make it your own. So that's how we're going to visualize the data. How are we going to actually get real-time market data? Well, we're going to be using Alpaca, which is a sponsor of the channel, and I like using this because it lets me do real-time stock prices and crypto prices from the same dashboard, and they even have a real-time news API, so I'm going to be using this a lot on the channel, so please use the link below and sign up if you haven't already. So that's enough of a description of what we're building. Let's go ahead and get started with the code. All right, as usual, I have Visual Studio Code open right here, and let's just create a new file. I'm going to call it index.html, just like that, and I'm going to create a JavaScript file called, let's call it gridbot.js, just like that. And then in index.html, we can start a basic HTML page. So I'll do that. And so I can do a few tags here, give it a title, gridbot demo, just like that. And then we give it a body and say hello. Okay. So I can just open this file in Chrome. So you can see my hello there, nothing special, just a basic HTML page. And now let's go ahead and include our gridbot.js. So I have a script tag here. And I'm going to do source equals gridbot.js, just like that. And so to make sure that's loading, I can do alert gridbot. Okay, I'll save that. And let's make sure this is loading our script. And you see I have alert gridbot like that. And we have a new JavaScript file that's ready to go and to accept code. And now all we need to do is look, how do we actually use a WebSocket in JavaScript? So I'm going to go to the WebSocket API. So this is on mozilla.org, and we just need to use this WebSocket object right here. So we just need to do new WebSocket with a URL. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say var, create a new variable, or we can do const. Let's just do JavaScript 6. And so I'll do socket equals new, and then we'll do WebSocket. Okay, and we just need to give it some URL. But what URL should we use? Well, let's declare a variable called URL, and then let's give it our Alpaca WebSocket. So we can go to the Alpaca documentation here, and you see I have real-time data here, and they should give me a URL. So there you go. For crypto, you can now stream crypto data, and I'll do just like that, and we should have a WebSocket. So I can do console.log socket. And let's just see if that logs some socket object. So I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to do developer tools. So you can do that. And then when I look at my developer tools, you see how I have this WebSocket object right there. All good. So now that we have this WebSocket object, what can we actually do with it? Well, if you look at the documentation for WebSockets, you can see we can send messages, and you can also receive different events like open and message. So we can do an on message function here when we receive a message. So let's try this part, this on message. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say a socket.onMessage. I want to give it some function to call on message. So I'm going to assign this to a function, and this will receive an event. And I'm just going to log the event here. So on message for this WebSocket, I'm going to call a function and log whatever that function receives. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to refresh this. and you see I see a message event here, and that message event has some data, and this data says success and connected. So I'm interested in the message data. And then you can see I received another message, right? So when I receive another message, I logged it again, and this message says from Alpaca says error code authentication timeout. So I received a message saying I successfully connected, but then about 5 seconds later I received timeout. That's because I didn't authenticate. So Alpaca requires you to authenticate in order to get data from its WebSockets. So now that we've received a message, let's go ahead and log event.data, which is that message I just saw, just to make it a little simpler. So you see this T success and message connected, right? And that's actually a string. So what I need to do is actually do, I can do const message equal JSON.parse. And so since this is a string, I want to make it into an actual object. And so what I can do is event.data like that. And now if I log the message, this is still, it'll still look the same in the console. I just want to point out that that's a string and this is an actual object. And so you can see this is an array of, it just has one element, so the 0th index, and it has a message success. So what I can do is check for this message connected here. And so what I can do is say if message 0 message, actually I'm going to call this data. I'm going to do data. So I'll just log the data there. I'm going to say data 0 message equal connected. Then I can go ahead and authenticate. Do authentication like that. And let's do that. Okay, cool. I got my message. I know I can do my authentication. So how do I actually authenticate? Well, the Alpaca documentation is going to let me know. So let me see how I authenticate. So I just need to send it a message that looks like this. You need to authenticate yourself using your credentials. Send the following message. Okay, so I'm going to store this authentication message up here. So I'll do const auth message, right? Const auth equals, and I just need to give it my key ID and my secret key. And so I'll do that. And if you're using another exchange, I know some people, this is very US specific, a lot of the things I do, but if you're using another exchange, using a WebSocket is exactly the same right here, where you just give it a WebSocket address, it has an on message, and some of them you need to authenticate, some of them you don't even need to authenticate. So you should be able to get a free WebSocket and follow along. So I'm going to get a new key here. So I'm going to view my API keys. I'm going to regenerate a key here, and then I'll copy my API key ID right here, and I create a new one every single time. And so here we go. I can show it to you. No big deal. So got that there. And so I have my auth message. Now I need to, after I connect, I want to send a message to my WebSocket. So I can do socket.send, and I need to send this as an actual string. So this is an object here. So I'm going to do json.stringify the authentication message, and I should be authenticated, right? So I'm going to connect. Once I'm connected, I'm going to send it this authentication message as a string. So I'm going to refresh this page again. Okay, do authentication. I sent it, and now you see I have a success, and it says message is authenticated. So that's great. So we've successfully authenticated. And so let's check for that authentication message. So I'll say if data 0, and you can create variables for all these as well, message equals, and if it equals authenticated, and then we're authenticated. And then once we're authenticated, let's go ahead and subscribe to some data. So let's go ahead and, now that we know we're authenticated, let's send it another message to subscribe to some real-time market data. So I'm going to go to real-time data here, and then let's look at what subscribe looks like. So we're going to subscribe to some data. And so I'm going to paste this in and see what it looks like. So I'll put this at the top. So we'll define these at the top. And I'm going to do subscribe. Const subscribe, that's fine. So subscribe equals action subscribe. We want to subscribe to trades, quotes, and bars. Okay, so the bars are just, we can do minute bars or hourly bars, daily bars, and so forth. So I'm going to do ETH USD just to focus on Ethereum. And I'm just going to do one symbol at a time. So you notice how you can pass an array of different symbols, but I don't want to complicate it and make like 7 charts at this point. Technically, we can do multiple symbols like I showed in that one example, but I'm just going to limit it to one. Get one right first, and then you can scale out to more. So quotes, ETH USD, bars, ETH USD, and trades, ETH USD. Okay, so we're going to subscribe to all these different feeds, and they're going to respond with data at different intervals. So that's my subscribe message, and I just need to do socket.send json.stringify subscribe message, right? So subscribe, okay? And if I do that, then I should start getting some data back. So I'm gonna refresh that. And look at that, tons of stuff is coming out right here. So let's check out what it looks like. So you see we're already getting tons of real-time data here. You see, if you expand it, you can see the structure. So there's a symbol, ETHUSD. You can see a T here, so that's a type. So that's a quote. AP is asking price. BP is bid price. There's a timestamp associated with each one. There's another quote. And what is this one? This is type T, so that's type trade. And so that has a price and a size and a timestamp, okay? So there's a bunch of different types of data streaming in right now, and see it's coming in really fast. And so let's go ahead and actually start working with this real-time data. So the first thing I want to do here is, instead of writing data 0 message right here, I'm just going to go ahead and store the message. Just make a little shortcut to it. So I'm just going to do data 0 message right here. And then that way I can just do if message equals authenticated, right? Or if message equals connected, if message equals authenticated, and so forth, right? And then I'm logging my data here, right? And so you see all I need to do is process an array of data. So one thing you'll note in the streaming data here is sometimes you get one element in this array that comes back, but sometimes you have multiple quotes. So you see how this has 6 elements. So I got a bunch of trades from Coinbase, so the exchange is Coinbase right here. So they combined multiple trades here into a single message. So rather than assuming I just have one in this array, let's loop through this array of trades here and make sure we can process each one. So at the bottom here, after they connected and authenticated, we've handled both of those cases, and I have data coming in. So I'm gonna take out that console log up there, and let's just loop through these. So I'm gonna do for var key in data. So I'm gonna loop through each key in that array, and the keys are just 0, 1, 2, 3 in this case, and then I'll just do console log like this. So data key like that. So I'm looping through the array one by one, and if I do it that way, I should just get one message at a time. So you see, now I'm no longer dealing with an array. I just have a bunch of objects that are streaming in line by line. And you see each of those bars, or each of these objects that are coming in, you see that T there? Those are all different types of messages. So you see quotes are coming in, trades are coming in, and every once in a while you'll see a bar come in. So every minute a new bar is completed, so I'll see a message of type B. And so what we want to do is just check on the type of each of these WebSocket messages and then process it however we want. So we're going to process quotes one way, we're going to process trades another way, and we're going to process bars another way, right? And so let's just write handlers for all of those. And so I can do if, or actually I'll do type. So I can do, let's do const t, and for type equals a data key, and it's dot capital T here. So that'll be our type. And let me see, is that reserved? I think I can use the word type in JavaScript. In Python, this is a reserved word. So I'll just do check the type, and you can do a switch statement or just some if statements. And so I'll say if the type is Q, I can console.log got a quote, right? And then if the type is a trade, I can say got a trade, right? And let's go ahead and log the object itself in this case. So we'll log data key here instead. So I'll move it inside of each if here. So I'll do that in quotes. Got a quote, got a trade, and then we can also say if type is a bar, we can log got a new bar, and then we can just kind of look at the structure of each one and data key like that. So I'm going to do that, and you see how we got a quote, got a trade, got a quote, got a trade, and so forth, right? So that's all looking pretty good. And so let's make a place to actually put this data on the page rather than just saying hello here. Let's start rendering our little boxes on the screen to make a layout out of this. So on my index.html here, let's go ahead and create a couple of div elements. So I'm going to create a div element. So I'll do a div ID equals quotes. So this is where we'll append all of our quotes, and then I'll do a div, and I'll do ID equals trades right here, and we'll stream all the trades into this little box. And then we can also do bars here, but we're going to eventually put in a chart here. So we'll probably just start with quotes and trades, and bars will end up being our chart. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So I have these two divs here, and then let's go ahead and make it where we can see them. So I'm going to put a style tag up here. And what should we do? Should we put it inline? Yeah, we're not going to need much style sheets, so I'm not going to create a separate file. I'm just going to do a style tag here, and I'll say for the quotes div here, so I can do pound quotes, and then I'll select this div right here and style it. So I'm going to say the width, and just temporarily we're going to do width 400, height 400, and then trades will be width 400, height 400, like that. And then let's make our body background black, color light green, just to make it look like a terminal of sorts. So do that. So now I have a black background, and then here above quotes I'll do an H1 tag and put quotes. Above trades I'll do an H1 tag and do trades. And then above here, I'll do bars. Okay, and let's try that. Okay, so now we have a placeholder for quotes and trades. We can try a certain font family. So maybe you want to use Arial or Courier or something cool like that. And then let's give these a border as well. So I'll do a border solid light green 1 pixel, like that on both of these. And technically, since these are exactly the same, let me just make this of type panel. So I'm going to give it a class name. So I'll do a dot panel. So I'll give it ID quotes, and then a class equals panel, and then a class equals panel, and then class equals panel. And then we don't have to repeat all that styling. And so we'll have our panels look a certain way. So I have a bars panel, quotes panel, and a trades panel. And let me put the bars one at the bottom for now, because I want to focus on just quotes and trades. So I'll put this one at the bottom, and we'll fill in the chart later. Okay, so quotes and trades right here. So how do we get this stream of WebSocket data to appear here in our web application? So all we need to do is get each of these elements by ID, and then append that data to these divs. Okay, so I'm going to get element by ID quotes and get element by ID trades. And so up here, we can put this at the top or in here. It's probably more efficient if we just do it at the top. So I'll do const quotes element equals document dot get element by ID, and this is just standard JavaScript. So I'm going to get the quotes element just like that, and then I'm going to do const trades element equals document dot get element by ID trades. And so I have each of those elements. And now for each of these particular messages that come in, all I need to do is actually append those to this quotes elements and trade element here. And so what I can do is create new HTML elements with this data inside. So I can do trade element equals, so I'm going to create a new element. And so const trade element equals document.create element, like that. So I'm going to create a new div, and then inside of that div I'm going to append, or I'm just going to do inner HTML. So we'll just create a new div and then place the trade data inside of it. So I'm just going to do let's give it a bold tag, and for each trade, what do we have? So let me pause this. So each trade we have a timestamp, so that's the .t right there. And so what I can do is bold the timestamp, and we can use these backticks here so that we can substitute in variables and it'll display them. So I'm going to do this these backticks and then this dollar sign right here and these curly braces, and that'll let me substitute in a variable here rather than doing a string plus string, right? We can just embed it right in. And so I can do data key .t right there, and then that'll be in bold, and then I can do the price and the size, so data key p and s. So what I'll do is I'll do the timestamp in bold, and then we'll do the data key dot price like that, and then the data key dot size. And let's see how that goes. So that'll create the element, and then I just need to append each one of these new trade elements that comes in. I need to append it to this trades element, and we'll keep appending it to the page. So I'll do trades element dot append child, and this is all DOM manipulation stuff. So if you look up append child HTML, right, so you can create a new element and then you can append a child element to that. So you see how they create an element called block and they append a child element to that. So we're just creating a place, we're selecting a trade div in our page, and then we're creating new child HTML elements and dynamically adding those elements to our page with JavaScript. So I'm going to append child, and I'm going to append this trade element that I just created. So there's an overall trades element, and then we're appending trade element by trade element, for each message into this trades element. And now I'm going to refresh this, and looks like I got an error already. And what is the error? Cannot read properties of null reading append child. So trades element was null. So let me see what happened here. So trades element, get element by ID trades. And I think what's happening here is I need to put the script tag at the end here, or I need to wait for the document to load. Otherwise, this element doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to put that at the bottom. And now you see it's actually working. So that element existed on the page, and then my script loaded and found it. And look at this. So I got tons of trades coming in here, and you see how it's busting right out of the box there, right? So I'm not handling this well. I'm just letting it scroll off the page. But it looks great. We're actually appending trades to this element, and so it's working as we expect. But what we want to do, we don't want to append all these in here because there's going to be like millions of them over the time. Let's go ahead and limit it to 10. So with the latest 10, and then each time a new one comes in, we're going to chop one off the bottom just so that we limit this right here. And it looks like we need to make this a little bit wider as well. So I'm going to make a panel 600 pixels wide, right? And then we'll keep track of the number of trades that we've streamed in already and only do 10 of them at a time. So what we can do here is, since we're creating a new div for each trade here, let's go ahead and give each of these trade elements a class name. So I'm going to do trade element dot class name equals trade, right? So we're going to have a bunch of divs with a class name of trade, and so we're going to append these child elements. And what we can do is say we're going to get all the trade elements on the page, and if there's more than 10, we're going to remove the last one. So I'm going to do var trade. I'm just going to do var elements equals document dot get elements by class name. So get all the trade elements like that by class name, and then if elements.length is greater than 10, then we can go ahead and remove the last one. So I can do trade elements.remove child, and then I'm going to do elements 0. And actually by the last one, I mean the very first one, so the oldest one. So the oldest one is the one that was in there first, and so I'm going to get all the elements and remove the very first one, element 0, and it should limit this to 10. And so now if I do this, you see elements start coming in. And then you see I actually misspelled it. So I wanted trades element, not trade elements. So trades element right there. And let me try this one more time. Okay, so trade is streaming in, and there you go. Look at that. So we started streaming it in until we hit 10 elements, right? Stream, and then there you go. Now it's just scrolling through. We're not outgrowing our box here, so that's all looking pretty good for trades. So that's great. We can add a little bit of padding. We can shrink this down a little bit. So let's go ahead and shrink this down a little bit in our index HTML. So maybe we don't need height 400, and then maybe we want a padding of 20 pixels just to space it out a bit. So let's see how that looks. All right, now we got a little bit of padding. We got our data streaming there. We can make it a little bit shorter. So we'll do a height of 200 pixels, and maybe we'll increase our font size, right, to 20 pixels just to make it a little bit bigger. So do that. And let's see if that fits 10 still. I overshot a little bit, so I'm gonna make it just height of 200 and let's say 40 pixels. 240, I think that'll hold it. All right, cool. That's looking pretty good right there. So we have streaming trades, and we have our timestamps, and we have the price and the size for each one of those trades. And let's just do that for quotes real quick. So I'm going to get the elements for quotes, and we can repeat this, or we can write it into a function. I'm going to be lazy and just do a copy paste and just replace some of these elements for now until I see what's the common elements. So I'm going to create new quote elements and give them a class name of quote. And then instead of trade and price, a quote element actually looks a little bit different. So we have an ask price and a bid price and a time. So we're going to use AP and BP instead. So I'm going to do asking price, or I'll do the bid price first and then the asking price second, like that. We still have a timestamp. The class name will be quote. We'll append that. So we're going to do quote element class name, quote element inner HTML, and then we're going to append this to the quotes element up there, and then get elements by class name quote. And if elements.length is greater than 10, then we're going to remove a quote element from quotes element, just like that. Refresh that, and you see I got a bunch of errors. Trade element is not defined, so I forgot one. So there's that one. Do that, refresh it, and now you see I have quotes coming in fast and furious here, much faster. So these are just a bunch of bids and asks, and these are actually trades that are being executed, and that's all flowing in properly. So that's looking pretty good. And now we could also do that for bar data. I think that will be a little bit slower. Let me see if I can filter this down to see what a bar looks like, or wait for a minute to pass. So it's currently 10:35 a.m. All right, you see right there, it says got a new bar. So I should have gotten a new bar. And how do I look at that? Let me, there you go. I'm going to filter it down to B, and this is the structure of a bar of data. So the type is B, and then we have OHLCV as usual. You can see I got 2 more bars just came in. And so you can see I'm getting a bar from different exchanges here. So you see one of those is FTX and one of those is Coinbase. And so yeah, we can get bar data from different exchanges and subscribe to those simultaneously. And we can just isolate one if we just want to chart one of those, or we can chart both of those separately. And I think that's pretty good for this video. I think this is already at least 20 or 30 minutes. I've noticed when I create these videos that are 40 minutes to an hour, it takes me a long time to publish them because I got to watch them all the way through and make sure it flows nicely. So I'm going to stop it right here now that I have something that's functionally working. And in the next video, we'll use this bar section to actually fill in a real-time chart. And then we'll go on to actually do the order management for the grid trading bot. So I think this is a pretty good start, and thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next video. Thanks.